Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. Thank you so much for joining us this week. We've got a pretty exciting show because we're going to be continuing our interview series with the folks seeking the Democratic nomination for the Kentucky Senate seat. This week we are going to be meeting with Representative Colonel Pam Stevenson. Should be great to hear from her. She's currently a state representative from Louisville's 43rd district. She's in the hunt for the Democratic nomination for that open Kentucky Senate seat. Just had a Democratic primary debate with pretty much the full slate last night. We'll get her to share why she's the best candidate to make history. As folks might know, they certainly might not remember, 1992 was the last time a Democrat was elected to the Senate from Kentucky. And she is a state lawmaker. Get her thoughts and the kind of closing hours of the General Assembly, which is right now in the throes, although it sounds like it's going to be a late night for the state lawmakers, including Colonel Pam. So before we get into it, let's go ahead and check in with our co-host, who you are or where you are. I think that's mostly it. Who are you? Where are you? And then we'll get into the news. Hey, Nate, what's up, man?
Hey, Aaron. So good to be co-hosting with you tonight here on Kernels of Truth, where we're going to have a real live kernel and a lot of truth. I mean, there's always a lot of truth, right? But tonight is more truthful than most. So this is Nate Orshan coming live and direct from Kits in my house in South Frankfurt. And I guess, I don't know if I have a bite in the list. I mean, most of the GOP in the General Assembly are on my bite list, including, my own Senator Jay Williams. But I guess tonight we're going to have a story about Mr. John Blanton, a representative out of Salyersville. And so I don't know if he merits a bite, but maybe just a little bit of gnawing on his leg. So yeah.
Nice.
Representative
All right. I like that. I'm Aaron coming to you from Lexington. If you want to get specific, it's the Childsburg development in the greater Hamburg area. If I'm going to put somebody in my biting list, I think it's hard to pick because, as you say, the entire legislature in Frankfurt. So, the 80% margins that the GOP have in the Senate and the House means, they're all for one and one for all, and they're all doing horrible things generally. But I will give a shout out specifically to Vanessa Grossel, who is theoretically my representative in the 88th district. And she's a different type of Republican who goes along with everything the Republicans do. So, it's if you want change out of Frankfurt, we gotta just we gotta change those numbers. That is just an overwhelming super duper majority. So, I think we'll touch on it later. The governor, vetoed a bunch of stuff because he's the governor. He has that power. And then they just rolled right over him and, passed it all back. So, don't really have much of a separation of powers right now in Kentucky's, General Assembly. That's for sure.
No, it's sort of, it's more than frustration. It's like, you're sort of tied down and forced to watch everyone sort of running and walking around you in complete freedom,
Yeah. So let's go ahead and check in on the news of the week.
Hey.
And we've got some, I think, pretty important stories to share with you, and excited to hear what Nate's got in store for us.
Yeah, so this one comes out of Kentucky.com, the Lexington Herald Leader, just published today by the great Taylor Six. Headline is KY lawmaker says Supreme Court's judicial impeachment ruling unconstitutional. So I'll be quoting a lot liberally because I'm kind of liberal, but give a little background to what we're going to get to. So there's this, you may have heard of this Fayette Circuit Court Judge Julie Goodman, and back in January, former Kentucky lawmaker Killian Timoney, who is running for a seat again in Lexington, he's a Republican. He filed an impeachment petition, and he's saying that Judge Goodman has abused her office, and he has 6 cases that he says proves his point. Okay, great, whatever. So the resolution makes its way into the House. And lo and behold, back on March 20th, by a 73 to 14 vote, which is pretty standard for stuff for the Republican supermajority, Judge Goodman was impeached. Okay, and then anyone who knows about impeachment knows that starts out in the House, whether in Kentucky or in Congress, and then it has to go into the Senate for trial. And of course, if impeached, Judge Goodman could have been removed. But just 9 days ago, April 6th, Skokie, the Supreme Court of Kentucky, ruled that it was invalid, and they could not proceed into a trial in the Senate. So that should have been that right there. But we just got a new resolution on the last day of the legislative session, introduced by the guy who was on my gnawing list this week, Representative John Blanton of the great town of Salyersville. And he wants to basically say that it's null and void what the Supreme Court said. Yes, that's right. So, representative in the House doesn't like what the Supreme Court ruled, and so wants the House to rule on, or pass a petition, I should say, saying that it's, never mind. We're saying that we should be able to go ahead and do this impeachment thing. Thank you and good night. Yeah. Judge Goodman's lawyers are arguing that the the Judicial Conduct Commission is the place for Mr. Timoney to take up his qualms with Judge Goodman, not the General Assembly, and that's what the Supreme Court says as well. All right, so that would seem to be that until, of course, Representative Blanton steps up and starts to get around what they call the separation of powers doctrine. So that's, the principle that the judiciary, especially the Supreme Court, is the final word. You pass a law, the government signs it, or more often these days, the governor does not sign it, but it gets passed anyway because we have such a slim number of assembly people, Senate people. I can talk. I've been working all day today. Senators and representatives. You don't need more than, I think, 50% plus one to override what the governor has vetoed. So anyway, there goes that. There's so much for a separation of power. But the judiciary is supposed to have the final word. And in fact, I did a little looking, and just 3 years ago, the Kentucky Supreme Court was faced with a law that would have, quote, permitted litigants to transfer certain constitutional challenges to a different court, even if the lawsuit was originally filed in a proper venue. This is the case, ARC Properties versus Cameron. And where did I get it? Nate, where did you put it? Oh, okay. That comes out of a state court report, and the reporter was Michael Milov Cordoba, November 2nd, 2023. So this has been ruled on, and they said that, you know what, this law that you had that where you could the litigant can change the venue, nope, you can't do that because that violates the what? The separation of powers doctrine. So if anyone knows this stuff or should know this stuff, it should be our darn representatives, especially that darn Representative Blanton out of Salyersville. But he apparently is ignorant of it, or maybe he's performative. And that's where I'm sort of going with this, is I think, from hell's heart, I stab at thee. Like, all right, I can't get my way, but you know what? I'm gonna try to keep acting like the big guy here, and we'll get this resolution passed and blah, blah, blah. So I don't think it's going anywhere. I don't think Representative Blanton's going anywhere, frankly. But here we are, still trying to rail against the dying of the light.
Yeah. I do think it seems pretty clear the Judicial Conduct Commission should be, the primary body dealing with the behavior of, the conduct of the judiciary.
Yeah.
And not giving them a chance to kind of move forward with their own process before a political process kind of interjects seems seems like not the right way to do this. So,
and I'm not saying that what Timoney was alleging about Judge Goodman is necessarily wrong. I don't know. But whether he's dead on the money or he's just making stuff up, as a lot of Republicans seems to do these days, it's a violation of this separation of powers.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously the Constitution is going to dictate, and the fact that there is an impeachment process, obviously, that should be a remedy for certain situations. But again, I do think like Judicial Conduct Committee probably gets first bite at that apple, and does seem like they're kind of going out of their way to ignore the separation of powers. Not dissimilar to the amount of time and energy they've put into monkeying with Fayette County and Jefferson County school boards, right? So definitely that's another issue. We haven't talked about it, but it's been a lot of time and energy in this General Assembly to get in the middle and to redefine school board districts in the case of Jefferson, and then to really put their thumb on the scales of who can be elected to school board in Fayette County, specifically looking to take out the school board president, which seems like an interesting move, right? It does, this. The problem with the power, this kind of absolute power that the GOP has, they are not staying in their lane, and no one's really got the ability to check them, right? So I think this kind of falls into a similar bucket of overreach that they have no accountability for.
Overreach, and you know what? Just thinking about this kind of psychologically, if I were Judge Goodman, and I know that all this stuff is going down against me. And say I had done something shady. I'm not alleging it, but for the sake of this argument, even if I had, this wouldn't make me stop doing it, right? It would, if anything, it would make me really stick to my guns, double down. Like you can't do this stuff to me. I'm going to keep doing whatever it is that Timoney's alleging. That kind of thing. So it's from a sort of personal psychology point of view, it's counterproductive. Great. You look like big guys trying to do your thing, but you're probably going to make the judge not behave any better than you thought she was behaving in the first place. Yeah.
Interesting. And of course, judges are elected in Kentucky. So that is, ultimately, that's, the voters get the final determination.
Yeah.
But, obviously we're complaining about who's getting elected. So, we certainly understand some of the drawbacks of solely having that as the check on folks' power. Speaking of checks on power, speaking of shady behavior, this is a story we didn't cover when it initially broke, but now that there's a kind of, a rebound story as well. So there's a new ethics complaint that has been filed against a Kentucky lawmaker, which alleges improper payments from lobbying interests. This comes to us. This is actually a story that was broken initially by Tom Loftus, who's a longtime money and politics watchdog and reporter, and he put this story into the Kentucky Lantern, and now this is kind of a response to that story because we're absolutely seeing that what's being alleged is that this lawmaker, Julie Rocky Adams, has basically, taken a lot of money from corporate lobbying interests and have been basically the exclusive supporters of a quote unquote nonprofit that she allegedly runs, called Kentucky Strong. And now we have the Louisville Democratic Party filing a sworn complaint with the Kentucky Ethics Commission, asking for an investigation of the news that was broken by Tom Loftus. So in the complaint, they point to the story and which suggests that Adams violated 6 provisions of the legislature's code of ethics, including using her position as a senator and committee chair for personal financial gain. Because that's the thing about this, quote unquote nonprofit, Kentucky Strong. This thing does not seem to be super legit. Right. So during a period, 3 years, from October 31st, 2022 through the end of last year, they got $115,000 in contributions, all of it from lobbying interests, $50,000 from Revolution Racing, which owns Sandy's Racing and Gaming in Ashland, $25 grand from Churchill Downs, $15 grand from the cable television company Charter Communications, $15 grand from LG&E and KU Energy, $5 grand from lobbyist David Whitehouse, and $5 grand from a company called NOLA Education, which was represented by Whitehouse. So, and during that same period, the only expenses listed by Kentucky Strong were 12 payments totaling $80,000, $80,500 to Adams as the organization's executive director. Let me tell you,
Ding, 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 ding.
if your organization in the span of 3 years only has one expense, which is to pay the executive director, this is not a legit nonprofit, right? This is absolutely money washing. This is, how she is, getting a little bit more financial compensation for her very important work being a state senator, right? There's no way, and people can't really find anything that Kentucky Strong has been doing, right? They initially chartered with a goal of electing more women to the legislature. And then like, oh, well, we did it. We got plenty of women in the GOP.
Oh, please.
Already now. So we're just going to, let Julie do her work, whatever that is. It's so important. So yeah, it seems this is like so shady. Such a real problem, and I'm so glad to see that somebody has filed that ethics complaint, and really important to see it move forward, because again, as we talked about earlier, with these kind of unchecked power, if you've got this super majority, things get sloppy, and I think people get pretty emboldened to overreach and to ignore the rules, and to really set up a pay to play that is, really problematic. This is just a really problematic story, and it's super gross. And I'm really glad that Tom Loftus and the Kentucky Lantern have broken this, and we'll be watching to see it proceed. So far, I think Julie Rocky Adams has been absolutely shameless in defending herself, and we're not haven't seen any kind of mea culpa or anything to kind of point out that this stinks, right? She's just defending herself. So I don't know. We'll watch. Nate, what do you think about this one?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's just wait, y'all are going to impeach Judge Goodman, but you're not going to try to get rid of this person, I mean, yeah, I was reading the article that they were talking about how she listed reimbursements in her income taxes, like the money coming was reimbursements, and it's like, no, they're not really reimbursements. They're going directly to you. It's like income. It's like a direct payment, Don't be calling it reimbursements. Yeah, again, so there's a lot of parallels to the Judge Goodman story too, because like you said, Senator Rocky Adams is accountable to the voters and will face another election, and this will probably play a big role. So in a sense, there's some degree of course correction that can happen there. But let's hear it for people who are willing to sort of spill the beans about situations like this, and let actual journalists know, so that they in turn can let we the people, the constituents, the residents of Kentucky, the voters, and the people who are affected by corruption in the General Assembly, let us know, So,
yeah,
more of that, please. Not more corruption, but more finding out about, because that she's like the tip of the iceberg, right? It's not. There's probably a lot of other people who have these relationships with would-be nonprofits and whatnot that are like, lobbyists just funneling.
Yeah, for sure. Follow the money. Follow the money. Hey, yeah. So I think what we'll do now is probably turn to our guest, because I see that she's here in the studio. Always excited to talk to Representative Colonel Pam Stevenson, coming to us right now from the legislature. Right, so they're in the final day of the session. Not sure if and when Sine will die.
Die, Sine.
I know they're going to try to cram as much as possible into the final moments and hours. So we just want to be really express our gratitude for you joining us from pretty crazy time. So Colonel Pam, how are you doing?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I miss both of you, and I am doing well. I wish I was at home on my back porch eating cake.
Yeah, no eating cake at home today. You were gonna have to do the work of, trying to stop some veto overrides, maybe. I don't know. I guess one thing, and I don't know if you can answer it directly, because I know there's a lot flying around, and I also know that your colleagues across the aisle have not always been very good about following the rules of sharing information about what's going when. But we were really supportive of the Welcome Home Kentucky campaign, the eviction expungement bill, which got passed unanimously in the House, but then got wrapped up in some other stuff in the Senate with the whole Airbnb issue that seems to be way less of a universally beloved effort than the eviction expungement. Do you have any sense of what's going on with that bill right now?
No, we are waiting. It's a waiting game now. And in fact, we're probably going to go back in shortly. But at this time of the session, the other bills are wrapped into other bills, which changes the original intent of the first bill and makes it very, very confusing because it all happens so quickly. Like we just had an A&R committee meeting, and then 30 minutes after we had that, the bill was on the floor.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not a lot of good government, not a lot of transparency. It is just super fast. And obviously right now with the renovations of the Capitol, right, there's not even galleries, so you can't really watch people kind of in real time, right? So again, you're doing the Lord's work there. And I don't think I want to trade places with you. But, is there anything?
I'm sorry. No, I'm just saying this is why engagement is critical. Without engagement, we get what we got.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I hear a lot of people, I'm in contact with a lot of Kentuckians, and they always have what they need. And I always ask the question, did you vote? Are you engaged? What are you doing? Because it takes all of us to keep this a democracy. And when people don't engage, we get this lopsidedness. And when it's lopsided, then things happen that shouldn't happen. We lose some transparency, and we start becoming more particular about particular things that are important to us and maybe not be important to everyday people.
Well, you've, I think, really made a name for yourself, kind of viral moments, standing up for some of our kind of least powerful citizens in our Commonwealth. And I just want to kind of, acknowledge that and thank you for your advocacy, because, the LGBTQ community, I think you've been a staunch advocate and just a fiery advocate. And it seems like, knock on wood, because it's late in the session, but it seems like this is going to be a year where there hasn't been, the culture wars were set aside for some of these issues, at least for the first time in a while. So I don't know, why do you think that's happening? Why do you have seen not as much of an assault?
I think a lot of it has to do with they're dealing with their own demons. Like when your chief person has fights with the Pope, starting wars, doing all types of things that in your heart shouldn't be done, but you can't say anything, it goes internal. You start looking inward. When you have a model of hate where somebody always has to be on the bottom, and then you direct everybody's attention to the person to hate, that was what was happening in the last several years. And then after we've gotten where we are today with, going from Venezuela, making Canada the 51st state, then buying Greenland, bombing Iran, and then maybe we should do the same thing with Cuba. Today is on, today is not on. Maybe it should be. You got 2 days, you got 10 days.
Yeah.
They're dealing with themselves. And it makes it very hard to keep the charade up, if you will, to direct other people's attention to where you want them to have it. So, for example, 2 years ago, when they said they're eating cats and dogs in Ohio.
Oh, my God.
We talked about that for a year. The Dems talked about it for a while. And we knew it wasn't happening, but we allowed them to direct the narrative. And then when they said they're teaching critical race theory to children in elementary school, we talked about it. Instead of creating our own strategy in our conversation and making sure that every registered DM had their part in it, we waited for them to say what they're going to say and then responded. So they have now switched gears a little bit to deal with the things that are coming up that might not be optimal for what they're trying to achieve.
Well, thanks for opening that up. I guess let's go ahead and transition to your campaign, your candidacy.
Yay.
So, so you are somebody who has run statewide before. You're currently state representative for the 43rd district and the Jefferson County, and I assume you could have just stayed there. Probably pretty safe. You did a really good job. I'm sure people are excited to keep sending you back to Frankfort. But you did run in the past. You ran for Attorney General on Governor Beshear's reelection campaign. That didn't pan out. But what was it about this open Senate seat that made you put your toss your hat in the ring again and take on the big challenge of a statewide campaign? And honestly, like, I'll just ask you, do you think, can a Democrat do what has not done since 1992 and win a statewide federal Senate race?
Yes, absolutely yes. And every time someone asks that question, what it tells me is you're not necessarily doing the work. If all of us came together and did the work and say, this is what we're doing, that power cannot be stopped. But when some of the power is siphoned off by doubt, by looking at what can be possible and what's not possible, then that's where we grow weak. They use us against us, and we fall for it every time. So yes, it can be done. Secondly, this is a different time. People are concerned about their families. They're concerned about the economy. They're concerned about so many different things, and they're not sure that they're on the right path. Now, they're not running up and down the street saying, I made a mistake, and I don't need them to. I just need them to be different. And they are looking at what's happening, and they're thinking, this is not what I asked for. So I got in this United States Senate race because I, on both sides, am the most qualified candidate in terms of I'm the one that has governance, legislative, and global leadership experience to bring all parties together for focused solutions. I'm the only one that's done that. And I've done it in adverse situations. When they sent me to the Middle East, when they sent me to Mali, when they sent me to Sierra Leone, all the places where there were war conflicts, they would send me to negotiate different things. Working with the United Nations, working with the 9/11 Commission, working with the State Department. That's what has prepared me for the global conversation and for putting this country back together. There is not one of the things that I did in my 27 years was the security of America. And there were many, many people that I commanded, that I was responsible for, that trusted my judgment. And they knew if I said we had to charge the hill, that we had a plan and we had to charge the hill, but I would have their back. Many young people died for the promise of America. They did what they were supposed to. They lived for something bigger than self. And we have to continue this fight to make sure that whatever has happened in this last 250 years, that 250 years from today, we have America 2.0. We honor their lives. We honor their sacrifice. We honor the values that this country stands for. And that's why I'm in this race, the one that's most uniquely situated and qualified to break through what has been happening and make sure that all Kentuckians are taken care of. Now, one of the things I will say is in the 60s, when we took down the signs that said for colored only, we didn't deal with what had the signs go up. It just went underground. And now that that's been given permission to come to the surface, we get to deal with it for the people that are not yet born. And we get to make sure that the promise of America and the values of America are sustained. You know, all across this country, in legislators, in schools, in different places, we say, I pledge allegiance to the flag with liberty and justice for two or all.
Right.
And if we're going to stay true to that creed, to form a more perfect union, to be a government for the people, by the people, to serve the people, then we've got to do what the people need to do to turn this around.
Amen. So I will say this, seems like, 27 years as a JAG officer working in kind of war-torn areas to, mediate conflicts, bring people together. That doesn't seem like a horrible resume for, dealing with Washington, D.C., really. It does seem like but I guess one real question I have for you, because it seems like, and maybe my memory, who knows how great my memory is, but it feels like one of the first things they did under Trump 2.0, before they even changed the name of the Department of Defense, I think they fired like a bunch of the JAG officers, right? So when you saw that happen, like what was, obviously you probably, took a little personally, but what was your take on why they would do something like that?
The only reason you would fire the law is so you don't have to follow the law. Mm-hmm. As a JAG officer, I am responsible for telling my commander what the rules of engagement are, what the rules of war are, and making sure that they understand what their options are. One time in particular, we were looking at a plane that was out of communication. And it was a big room, and we were looking at the plane, and some people were thinking this plane was going to attack us. But the out of all the people in the room, because I am the legal advisor, the commander turns to me and says, "Judge," because that's what he called me, "what should we do?" And what I said was, "Do we have time for a visual evaluation?" And we had a little time. I said, "Let's wait until that time before we shoot anything down." And when the plane got closer, it was an American plane that had lost all of its communication abilities.
Wow.
And the commander was very, under fire, was very grateful that I had studied enough to say, well, one of the things on the checklist is, can you get visual verification? And since we had the time, I said, let's take that time. War is an ugly game, and we have rules so the loss of life can be less. We have rules so that when we go back to rebuild, we don't have that far to go. We have rules so that humanity doesn't suffer unnecessarily. And that's the big reason why you would fire all the JAG officers that have been in this game for a long time. So you won't hear the truth. You will have yes people around you telling you what you want to hear, so you can clothe yourself in the veil of this is the right thing to do.
Yeah. I think I speak for all Americans when we're, very relieved when, the threats were not, the trigger was not pulled on the, Easter weekend, and the threat to, you take Iran, bomb it back to, the Stone Ages or whatever it was, he was threatening bridges, he was threatening power plants, desalination plants, all these things, which I got to assume as a JAG officer, you're like, yeah, nope. These are things that you should not be threatening and certainly not doing in a prosecution of a war. But yeah, I guess, what's your take on this kind of brinksmanship and just kind of the madman theory and the stuff that, they're just exposing and putting that right out there in the public eye in terms of these threats?
You certainly shouldn't be crafting foreign policy on social media. We have an obligation when we have classified information, classified briefings. It's classified for a reason. We want to eliminate the risk to our military men and women. And when you put rules out there, it only allows your opponent the opportunity to prepare. And the commanders that I've worked with before, we always had a plan, a get in plan, a get out plan, a purpose plan, a reason plan. And we were able to practice many of those plans and then pivot when things change, because it never goes as planned. It's a war. And we certainly did the things, we tried to follow the law and socialize it with the American people and socialize it with Congress and have them do their job. We have to be in this all together if we are to protect America. So firing some of them whom I knew, and they were good Americans that gave their life for this country, their professional lives. So that's why you would do that. In this thing, you just don't pick a fight with someone who says, I'm not stopping, I'm not backing down. Obama didn't do it. President Bush didn't do it. They tried diplomatic ways to reach Iran and make sure that we could keep the communication open, because they know that with Iran, it is about honor. You don't go in their backyard and do the things you did and think they're not going to necessarily retaliate or accept your olive branch. So now we've got a problem. Sending ships over to their house to say, we control your strait, is another problem. The only thing that can happen is that the escalation of the conflict. When we talk about national security, these are all things we think about. You don't just think about Iran. You think about the implications for the other major players. Do we have enough people? Do we have a plan to fight a two-front war? Do we have what we need at this moment to end this? And how will it end? We don't have any of that. We went from killing fishermen in Venezuela to making Canada the 51st state, to trying to buy Greenland, back over to bombing Iran. Now we're thinking about Cuba, and in between messing with every American in this country by every morning coming up with something new and different. That's not foreign policy.
Yeah. And it seems pretty clear to me, and I'll turn to Nate in just a second. It seems clear. This is what you're saying. I think everyone agrees with, right? That this is like, no one voted for this. Even the kind of diehard MAGA did not vote for this, right? I think there's a whole set of them that will, go to their graves defending him no matter. But a bunch of people, they're absolutely splintering of his coalition right now, because he was somebody who, said very clearly that I'm not going to start new wars, right? And this is a regime change war of choice that he has clearly just decided to start out of nowhere. But people turn to Trump, and I think one of the reasons that Kentucky has voted for Trump strongly every time he's on the ballot, because I think there's a sense that politics isn't really delivering, right, and the status quo isn't really delivering, and so this guy is like so not the status quo. Plus, also he's a billionaire. Plus, also he promised on the first day he's going to make life cheaper for me. He, of course, ignored all that. But, I think that sentiment that really led people to kind of rally to him as a candidate shouldn't be ignored. What's your take on, the politics as usual, and what could you do to shake things up? Obviously, you're not going to be, bombing our, adversaries or attacking our allies with random tariffs. But, what do you see as your role in the Senate in trying to help address some of that sentiment that got Trump in office?
You're right. Both parties are broken. We've got to do better to listen to what people need. People know how they want to live their lives. A government is designed to make sure that we can honor our commitments towards one another, not to tell you how to live your life. we take great pride in being a country that has freedom and rights, and it's no longer a great experiment. It works, but we have to follow and create a even better America. Now, because people are disenfranchised, then we've got what we've got. And one of the things we need to do when I become the U.S. Senator from this great state of Kentucky and show the other states how to do it, how to take care of families, is we've got to stabilize the families. As far as I can tell, if you are a human being, you need medical care. You can't live in this body without medical care, clean water, food, shelter, and very close after that is education and the broadband internet, since we're doing everything over the internet. Then secondly, we have to stabilize the safety net programs, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. We created that so that when we get in our elder years, we have a safety net. And we've not been really great at funding it and not using that money for other purposes. If we can start a war and pay $1 billion a day, then we can do both of those things. We can do both of them. We just have to have the will. And then if you notice, we have to have world restore order, because the reason why we have world peace is because of America. We used to be a country where our word was our bond. And that if we told a country something, we would do it. We could take care of our country and we could help other countries that were struggling. And because of that, we've had peace. Yes, sometimes it takes us donating food to other countries. Yes, sometimes it takes us making some different types of deals with other countries. But that is the price in a global system where everybody is interconnected, that we must pay so that we don't have World War III. So once we get to the Senate, those are the things we have to stabilize. And we have to be two-headed about it, short term and the long-term plan, so that we can put in guardrails so this will never happen again. It's easier to undo all the bad bills and things that have happened, but the agencies have been destroyed. So we're going to put them together at a 2.0 level. We're not going to try to put them back together the way they were. Let's capitalize on this opportunity to see what is needed and put these agencies back together to solve those needs.
That seems great. Appreciate that. Nate, any questions for Colonel Pam?
Oh, yeah. So many. All right. So I just have to say I am such a fan of your sort of deliberate way of thinking and nuance and just everything, global leadership experience. And so stick with me. It's January 2027, and Senator Stevenson has just been sworn in and serving in the Senate. And of course, we still have this current administration in place. And one of the things you have to do is evaluate candidates for various government positions and judicial positions that need, your approval, or needs the body of the Senate's approval. Tell us a little bit about what your thought process would be when you're evaluating these kinds of candidates, and especially when they're sort of coming from, that side.
Well, here is the thing. People always say, on day one, I'm going to change the world. On day one, you're going to find the bathrooms. It's as simple as that. And then you can begin the work of building coalitions in Kentucky, coalitions with your colleagues. And by listening, you can tell what they have a stomach for. Now, I'm a litigator. I've been a lawyer for 40 years and I've litigated. I've done impeachments, investigations. So I know the questions to ask. I know what rock to look under. I know what it takes to get people to say in public what they won't say. I also know what the silence is. So we have to do a lot of listening. And my listening is, does this help working families? And will it restore America? Those are the two things that are on our plate. It, as far as the working families, the people, now I'm gonna be very clear. I'm happy that there are billionaires. I think that you can be a billionaire. I'm not saying you can't be rich. I am saying that the workers that caused you to be a billionaire, that made your companies rich, that made your companies successful, should be paid a living wage so they can take care of their families. I don't understand why you think you can put a hole in the boat and your end won't sink.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
At some point, if you have no workers, you have no business. So we have to take care of working families. And it's easy to do by keeping them focused on what will support this. If we can put a man on the moon, we can resolve this issue called homelessness. We have decided we're very comfortable with people sleeping with snow as a blanket. We go out, we give them a cup of coffee, and then we go back to our warm homes. We must stay true to who we say we are: food, clothing, shelter. And the education is even more critical because we're in a global economy, and our children need to be prepared to think and to lead globally so that we're not at the beck and call of another country. So working families are number one. They are the foundation of this economy and this country. The second thing in dealing with restoring order means you have to build coalitions. That's going to take a little bit longer because we have done some things that have caused people harm. We've not honored our word. We have shown to be partial to one side over the other. So that will take longer. And it starts with honoring your word. If we say it, do it. In our personal interactions and in our governmental interactions. And when we can't do it, we have to say, I'm sorry, I said I was going to do X and I didn't, but this is what I can't do. We have to start doing the things that got us here. And then inside of that overall is a strategic plan that we take step by step by step to make sure that 100 years from now, the people that are not yet born know that we did what we could do. You might not know this, I'm an ordained minister, and I believe, for me, I'm a Christian, what the Bible says, that love never fails, love never fails, love never fails. And the greatest of these is love, and that you're to take care of your neighbor and the least of these. That's what we built this country on. In the chambers downstairs, we have a big sign that says, "In God we trust." Then we ought to do what he says.
Right on.
So on the point of healthcare, this seems like the number one issue that on a lot of people's plate, because I think the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or the Big Ugly Bill, however you care to characterize it, the cuts that were involved there, the fact they wouldn't re-up the subsidies, the ACA subsidies, right, meant a lot of people are just dealing with exploding costs of their healthcare premiums, and then the threats to things like the 35 rural hospitals in Kentucky that might need to close because of the cuts in the basically the one piece of legislation that the Trump administration has gotten through, right? What is your take on it, right? So obviously important for people to get the subsidies so they can afford their insurance. That said, this is clearly that's not a structural that's not addressing the structural problems of our healthcare system, and it feels a little bit more like a Band-Aid to me. What is your take on our healthcare system, and where would you look for solutions or advocate for changes?
It is a Band-Aid because we won't face what really needs to be done. We need to declare that healthcare, mental and physical, is a human right. And inside of that right, you cannot monetize it. You can't have drug companies on TV telling patients what to go ask their doctors for. You can't have people that are working for insurance companies dictating what treatment you can have, and they're not a doctor. Doctors have hard time sometimes getting treatment for their patients. I was with a family, a husband and a wife. They had a 2-year-old daughter that was the size of a 6-month-old baby. She was born with a heart defect. Her every system in her body was failing. She had a trach and she had a coloscopy bag. And when she wasn't gargling, she would look at me and just smile and play with me like kids do. The conversation I had with her parents was the difficulty in getting the medicine she needs to live. The difficulty in calling the Medicaid line and she was on hold for 6 hours one time.
Oh, wow.
And loving your child. That's why for me, that I have a special interest in the disenfranchised and the vulnerable. If God puts you in a body, and that includes the elderly, children, the disabled, and veterans, and those who are disenfranchised. If God put you in a body where the only thing you can do is lay on your back for your whole life and look at the ceiling, then our job is to make that the best ceiling possible. Our job is to make that the best life possible. And we don't do that. We have Michelle P. waivers. Some people are on the list for 10 years. And then when they get to the top, they're told they don't qualify. We must do better because we have monetized the one thing people need, which is healthcare. It's all right to make money off of it, but it should never be at the point of where people can't go to the doctor. I had I was knocking doors one time, and this gentleman in a wheelchair asked me if I had $6. And I said, for what? He says, well, my kidneys have failed, and I don't have the $6 fare to go to dialysis. And I've missed 2, and I'm starting to feel really sick. And his wife came over, and we had a conversation. Of course, they got the $6. $6 between life and death. We've got to do better. And he was even on the government, the bus that picks you up and takes you. It was $3 each way. And he could not afford that. Not everybody on Medicaid is cheating. And we build programs about Medicaid as if everyone is cheating. If you know there's fraud, then go after the people who are committing the fraud and don't punish everyone like we've done this past General Assembly by putting in many barriers to people that if they don't follow, they will get kicked off.
Yeah.
So we have to, again, short-term, long-term. It's like my mama used to say, go in that room and don't come out until you have a healthcare plan. She would tell us, go in that room and don't come out until you stop fighting.
Same thing.
Yeah. We need to do the thinking. And we need to do the thinking for the people who are up to their noses with alligators and are striving. I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to work as hard as you can and still have concerns about your future. We are better than that. And we, again, I go back to we put a man on the moon. We can do this.
For sure. Nate, any final questions for Colonel Pam?
No, I think you've covered everything I could possibly think of. So I'm just so grateful that you're here and you're running.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's going to take all of us. Like, I never thought I would be in an America where masked men could come up and shoot you.
Yeah.
I never thought I would be in an America where we would snatch babies out of the arms of moms and put them in cages.
Yeah.
So we have some work to do. And if you are alive, and all of us are right now, and if you're breathing, there's something inside of you that's a gift to this to this country. I'm inviting everyone to become a champion of humanity. If we can't hate for any reason, then we can love for any reason. And we all will be better off for it. There are a lot of policy things we can do. There are a lot of policy things we can talk about. But until we unite, we won't be able to move Kentucky forward, let alone America. And if you look at it, Mahatma Gandhi, when he said, England, get out of my country. Dr. King, every day he got up. Black folk was saying, you're doing too much. White folk was saying, Martin, you did too much. And he got up anyway. With Nelson Mandela, I don't know, about year 15 or 20, I might have gave up. But he did not. He stood on what he thought was the right thing and came out and became the president of the country that oppressed him. That's who we are. That's what we have to stand for. And when we rise, all rise. So that's why I say Kentucky first, America always.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for taking time away from the final moments of the legislature. Good luck getting back there and getting to your porch ultimately with some cake before too long. But then I do want to just say appreciate taking time off the campaign trail. We got a month and a few days before this decision is finalized. And I'm sure folks, you would welcome folks joining you at your website.
Oh, yeah. I need everybody. If you can walk, talk, breathe, it's not just about money. Yes, I need money, but I really need you. Go to stevensonforsenate.com, send me an email, do what you have to do, but don't let your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren know that you did nothing. Do something. Let's restore order and restore love. And while we're doing it, we're going to have fun and find the joy.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Thank you so much, Colonel Pam. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay. And we'll check in again.
Okay.
All right. So, hey, that was a pretty good show, Nate. I think we made it okay without Kim. Always sad when we don't have Kim, but she's taking the night off.
And self-care.
Self-care is important,
Yeah.
You gotta, and she, of course, sends her best to Colonel Pam for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Can you close this out?
Can I? So, I guess. Hey, folks, Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State and organized as a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project, the Common Ground Kentucky Action. Common Ground Kentucky Action Cut. And also, we are proud members of the Forward Kentucky Network. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. We will be back next week, and we will be joined by former Kentucky State Rep and another Senate candidate, Mr. Charles Booker, as we continue our Senate candidate series, and we'll have our usual updates on Kentucky political news with our own progressive views, of course. Production of episode 255, can you believe it, was by Parker Williams, King of the Wild Frontier. Nate Orshan, that's me, wrote and performed our theme song, Who Allowed Me on the Air. You can find more information and music at my website, https://natosongs.com. If you miss our weekly live stream on Facebook or YouTube, audio podcasts and our show notes are available on Apple, on Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you do listen to the pod, please give us a 5-star review wherever you are listening right now. That's it, friends and family, and thank you for joining Kernels of Truth.
Parker.